So our next speakers ay grupo po sila from the Department of Philosophy. First, we have Sir Alexander Atrio L. Lopez, an instructor in philosophy at UP Diliman, where he also finished his MA philosophy thesis. He graduated BA Philosophy summa cum laude, and he has also a degree in basic medical sciences from the University of the Philippines, Manila. His research interests are ethics, philosophy of mind, and aesthetics. Yung next sa kanya, because again, as I said, grupo po silang magpe-present this time, is Professor Jairus Espiritu, who teaches philosophy in UP Diliman also, Department of Philosophy, where he finished his MA Philosophy last year. Congratulations ulit, sir. And his master's thesis was on Wittgenstein and Badiou's notion of anti-philosophy. So his research interests include analytic existentialism, logic, meta-philosophy, and the philosophy of religion. And then, last but not the least, Professor Marielle Zosa, an assistant professor from the Department of Philosophy. She loves to teach, and her research interests are about socio-political philosophy and applied ethics. So let's all please welcome Professor Alexander Lopez, siya po yung mauunang speaker, followed by Professor Jairus Espiritu, and lastly by Professor Marielle Zosa. So let's give them a big hand.
Hi, good morning po. Can you please have the PowerPoint? Thank you, Ma'am May, for that introduction. Can you hear me po?
Yes po, sir.
Yes po. Thank you, Ma'am May. Binigyan niyo na po ako ng MA. Hindi pa po ako tapos sa thesis. Matatapos pala. Okay po. So this is means for discussing ethical issues in peace studies, and I'm Alexander Atrio Lopez of Espiritu Lopez and Zosa. Next slide po. Next slide po. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the outline of this part of the webinar. So this is the thesis of all our three presentations. Memes as art can be used for discussing ethical issues in peace studies via COI in distance learning. And then we divide these parts of the thesis among ourselves. The design of our presentations is that I will start with the more theoretical foundations of what we are trying to talk about, and then we go to more theory. So the middle part, Sir Jairus will bridge theory and application, and Ma'am Marielle will talk more about application. And for all our parts, we'll talk about different parts of the outline. Yung nakakapitalize po ay sa theory para mas malinaw siya na I'll be talking about theory, and then kay Sir Jairus po naka-mix yung capital tsaka small letters kasi po i-bridge niya yung dalawa, and he will focus more on memes and peace studies and memes and distance education. And Ma'am Zosa will talk all the things that I also talk about, but with more of an application focus. Next slide po. Okay, so let's start with the definition of an internet meme. I will not talk about how this term has evolved. So of course it started with Richard Dawkins' Selfish Gene book, but this is a good contemporary definition. An internet meme is a remixed, iterated message that can be rapidly diffused by members of participatory digital culture for the purpose of satire, parody, critique, or other discursive activity. So it's remixed because we have meme templates. For example, Sir Mendoza presented the boyfriend meme earlier, and I'll also present that in my presentation, but it has different contents, but the template is the same. And then there's the issue, the concept of virality here. So memes can be shared throughout social media platforms, and even TV news programs feature very famous memes. There are different iterations or kinds of memes as well. You have your static images with caption text. You have your even short videos, moving images, your hashtags. Okay, and then also finally there are different purposes for why you write memes. And we'll also talk about those as we go along the presentation. But an important conception of memes is that two things. First, it's a visual argument. Meaning it's an argument, meaning it's an anti-meme or an argument with incompletely stated premises. I will show you what this I will show you what this means in a while. Also, it is a genre. So here we can apply analysis of different art forms to the analysis of memes. And I will also show you something about this in a while. Okay, let's go to the next slide, please. First is I will show you how, oh, okay, so this is a meme, the meme that we will concentrate on. Again, this is the boyfriend meme. And the aim of the boyfriend meme is to tell you how someone can be distracted. So the boyfriend, the guy in the middle, is distracted from finishing his MA thesis, which he should be focusing on the right side. And then he's distracted by something else, the girl on the left side. Okay, next. So how is this an anti-meme? Again, an anti-meme is an argument with incompletely stated premises. So I state here a couple of arguments that can be made about this meme, meaning this is the argument that the meme may be saying. So it's up to us, the reader, to supply what the hidden premises are. Of course, there can be ambiguity here because the meaning of the things that we interpret can be interpreted in different ways. We have different disciplines in linguistics, in semiotics, in hermeneutics, etc., that can support these notions that even the meaning of an artwork or a certain text can be outside what the author intends it to be. So these are possible interpretations. So I wrote here the form of the arguments, but of course the technical nomenclature of the arguments are not really necessary. But this is just to show you how one image can deliver a lot of different arguments. So I also outline here the premises of the argument and the conclusion. So for example, one argument here, a very simple one, modus ponens, if the boyfriend is a fifth-year MA student who must finish his thesis, then he shouldn't be distracted. And then the second premise would be the boyfriend is a fifth-year MA student who must finish his thesis. Conclusion, the boyfriend shouldn't be distracted. And another possible argument here is a hypothetical syllogism. Premise one, if the boyfriend is a fifth-year MA student, he should finish his thesis. And premise two, if one should finish his thesis, he shouldn't be distracted. So combining those premises, if the boyfriend is a fifth-year MA student, he shouldn't be distracted. By doing this way, it can be clear whether the argument is valid or not. For example, the modus ponens and the hypothetical syllogism are valid arguments. And then we can also evaluate soundness for this and the evidences for the premises. Talking about evidences, next slide, please. So these are deductive arguments, but the next slide will show you an example of an inductive argument, where the evidential nature of the premises will be more important because your conclusion is probabilistic. And even if premises 1 to 5 are true, your conclusion may still be false. I'm just going to read one premise because the pattern is the same. So premise 1, when Hero was a fifth-year MA student, he got distracted from his thesis. And then you have 4 more other instances of guys who were fifth-year MA students who were distracted from their thesis. And the conclusion would be, boyfriend is a fifth-year MA student who will get distracted from his thesis. So again, you can evaluate this. You can evaluate this, but of course, the evaluation of an inductive argument would be different from your deductive argument. The point of this anti-mimetic analysis is to show how a meme is not just an image, but it can be meaningful and the meaning can be evaluated. I'll go on to the next slide, please. So this is memes as anti-memes. How about memes as genres of art? So this is a still from Citizen Kane, a 1941 movie, which is innovative because of its introduction of deep focus, or a cinematographic technique wherein everything in the frame is focused. So you can clearly see everyone in that frame, as opposed to, for example, the background being blurred. Why is this important? Because everything is clear on the frame, there's much more meaning that can be delivered. And this scene is very important because the movie is about the lost childhood of the protagonist. And your protagonist is the child playing in the background. Next slide, please. So there's the background. And then in the foreground, you have the mother of the child giving the child to adoption, to be adopted by that rich guy in the middle who's sitting down. Also, the middle ground is clear. That's the father of the kid, the one standing, commenting on the situation. So in the foreground, the mother is sort of giving away the childhood of the kid, which is shown in the background. So you have different areas in the frame, in one single frame, commenting on each other, making a much more meaningful image. Go to the next slide, please. So we're doing formal analysis, or the analysis of the composition, the things that you see in the image, and how these contribute to meaning. And you can apply the same formal analysis in a meme, with the foreground, a middle ground, and a background. Because more things are visible in our meme, like in the image on the right side, then more meaning can be delivered. Next slide, please. So what is the purpose of this formal analysis? This formal analysis of an image as applied to the formal analysis of the screen cap, which is done in film, in paintings, and other visual media. It can also be applied in the formal analysis of a meme, and in turn, the formal analysis in the service of the analysis of meaning, because meme can be considered as a genre of art. And there is literature comparing memes with different artistic genres. So all the analysis and attribution that can be given to art can be given to memes as well. Okay, so for example, this is an important attribution of the arts. The arts can awaken empathy and can be used for art therapy. Since the arts can do that and memes can be considered as art, then memes can also promote empathy as well. For example, one image that promotes empathy, the next slide, please. So this one. So this one is in Ireland. It reflects both the possibility and the difficulty of building links across divided communities. This is important because Dr. Plaga will later on talk about what peace studies aims to do. And one of the things that they want to do is to build bridges, linking unity and emphasizing our similarities so that people from different backgrounds can work together. And this image can show the difficulty of that endeavor. And empathy will be important for this. Next slide. By being empathetic, we can begin to understand more what other people are feeling and thinking. So memes and art can promote empathy. That's what we've shown so far. And this is important because as what Prof. Canuto talked about earlier, there were 3 C's in Lippmann's COI. In particular, in caring thinking, there's empathy. So there is a very clear link between what the COI aims to do, what the arts can do, and what memes can do. That is the establishment of empathy. So if you want your learning outcome to promote empathy for your students, there is a rich literature that the arts can do this, and memes as arts can do this as well. So the COI is a community, and social media platforms are communities as well. And Ma'am Canuto talked about the challenges and difficulties of your online platforms, but there's literature that can support actually our endeavors in studying more and in applying the notions of that we learned about the COI in an online setting. So for example, social media platforms are compatible with critical dialogical learning processes, and Ma'am Abby actually used the term critical dialogical earlier on, and allow access to non-dominant perspectives. So someone from Mindanao, for example, will be able to communicate and interact with someone from Luzon, and maybe hopefully be engaged in a COI to develop empathy and understand more what each other is going through. So next slide, Bob. Yes, these are my references. I would just like to recap what I said. The main point of our talk is to establish how memes as art forms can be used in studying issues, ethical issues in peace education via the COI in distance learning. So I talk about the theoretical foundations of what we wanted to do, in particular linking memes with art, with peace studies, with COI, and with distance learning. So Sir Jairus now will talk about a few more conceptual things associated with memes and how these impact the use of memes. Yes, sige, okay lang po. Go to the next slide. How these impact the use of memes. So he'll bridge also theory with practice. And Ma'am Zosa will later on will talk more about practice and round up from the theoretical to the application that we talked about. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sir Alex. I hope everyone can hear me po. Naririnig po ba ako? Okay, so after Sir Alex has talked about the theoretical foundations of memes for our talk, I will now zoom into one aspect of the theoretical background of memes. So first of all, I would like to apologize for the pun. You will understand this later on. This is quite justified in the talk. So next slide, please. Okay, so my own presentation will be focusing on a certain aspect of memes that would be very useful in problematizing how we can employ memes in our classrooms. First, I will be talking about memes as a concept in theory, sabi nga ni Sir Alex, and then memes in practice, that is, how can we really use memes in our classroom based on a a published journal article. So next slide, please. So we first go to the concept of a meme. Next slide. As Sir Alex has talked about, Dawkins actually coined the term memes before, but the notion of Dawkins of memes is much more broad than we conceive of memes today. Because today when we say memes, it seems as if it's equivalent to internet memes. But before, they thought of memes as narratives, ideas, even concepts that are being passed on from generation to generation. An example of a meme is what is here in the slide on the right. Usually you can present the idea that a lot of people, at least some groups in Mindanao, actually chose the Bangsamoro over the ARMM. This is a very popular meme form wherein the first one is rejected for the second one. And what the Almeida Lara and Mendonca points out here is that a meme, when it is used, it is usually humorous and it is attached to its eventicity. So that's the definition that I would like to zoom in this presentation. That it is a speech genre that produces humor and eventicity. These are the two key terms in this definition. So you can see now that memes are inherently humorous. An event. We go to the next slide. It can be an intimidating jargon, but it really sounds so simple here. The Almeida, Lara, and Mendonca actually comes from Bakhtin's notion of an event. This is a traditionally continental philosophical concept. Let me simplify that further. An event is an original creation related to memory, situated in a very specific cultural context. So an event is a very spontaneous creation that is related to our memories. A good example of this would be falling in love. Falling in love is an event in the sense that it is spontaneous, because no one wakes up in the morning telling himself, herself, that today I will fall in love. No, it is not something that you decide to plan beforehand, but it is something spontaneous and something that is original, something unexpected. And it is situated in a very specific cultural context, as memes are. Because memes, actually the study here was from Brazil, and the memes that they placed in the journal article did not make sense to me. And that just proves the point that memes, well, for one, I don't speak Portuguese, but secondly, the memes are situated in very specific cultural contexts. And so a meme is normally closer to orality, which imbues the utterance with informality. So in that respect, using memes in education really helps us build what Ma'am Abby called before social presence. This is from Garrison et al. And then as Sir Totoy actually mentioned in his brief remarks before, he said that we are in the company of friends and we do community of inquiry in the company of friends. And what are friends if not those people with whom you can share a laugh, right? So using memes really establishes a certain sense of community among the people and even among the classroom. So memes are usually humorous, as you know, jokes are supposedly spontaneous. Jokes are supposedly not expected, something that I have yet to master. So the meme that is posted here, for instance, it includes a humorous depiction of how, supposedly, according to the meme, the national government is reacting to the rising number of COVID cases. You can see here that there is also a political aspect here, and this can open up a discourse on whether or not the assessment of the meme is correct, right? So we now go to the next slide. While the eventicity of a meme is essential in its memeness, right? A meme is inherently evental. The problem here is that since it is too informal, there could be notions of violence and sarcasm inherent in memes appropriate in the classroom. This example of a meme here is actually a complicated example of a meme. It is a combination of two memes. The first one, for those of you who frequent Facebook, this is actually from the Facebook page Grice's Maxi Memes. The first one with Leonardo DiCaprio on it presents, because that meme is used when he is presented with something amazing or something that he's familiar with. So the concept presented here is that linguistics is the scientific study of language. So now you can break this down further into other concepts as well with the succeeding frames. The second frame, for instance, you see three people pointing guns at each other. The first one is actually a reduction of the DiCaprio concept. Language is just the result of biology. So that is reducing linguistics to biology. And then the woman behind him reduces biology to chemistry, reducing linguistics to chemistry. And then I think the other person at the end of the series of gun pointing is reducing now chemistry to physics. And then you see a sniper that physics is just applied mathematics, reducing physics further to mathematics, thereby via hypothetical syllogism, linguistics is reduced to mathematics. And then you have here someone from the mountains pointing a gun again. Math is just applied philosophy, reducing linguistics to philosophy. And then there's a space gun pointing at the guy, saying that philosophy is just a byproduct of misunderstanding language. What does that mean? Well, that reduces linguistics to a misunderstanding of language. So what does this mean? This is actually a series of concepts, different concepts of the study of language, which are actually usually presented in a chart, in a concept map, but actually you can present it with memes. But what is obvious in this example is that you can see an inherent violent inclination because it's spontaneous. You cannot help but not be filtered about what you put in memes. The tendency of educational institutions, as the Almeida Lara and Mendonca pointed out in their study, is suppress and to put more acceptable memes in their textbooks, for instance. And they call this, in a way, quote unquote, silencing, or I wouldn't say whitewashing, but they call this process hygienization. In a way, it becomes hygienic to look at if you reduce the violence and reduce the sarcasm in these memes. Next slide, please. So these are a few recommendations. Because we have to cater to Rojo 2013, as cited in the article, to different literacies, we have to engage students in a more informal level, but at the same time, taking into account the importance of hygienization. So I do think that we need to tread the dialectic between the meme's hygienization and its eventicity. Keep it spontaneous, keep it funny, but at the same time, we need to take into account that there are certain So we now go to the more practical side of this eventicity, in a way. So next slide, please. Next slide. There. Underwood and Kararo used memes in the review session of their chemistry class. I think this is in senior high school. What they did was to post memes on whiteboards around the classroom as a review for their final exam. And then each meme was assigned to a certain group. For 10 minutes, each group was tasked to discuss the meme assigned to them and then write around the memes about everything that they know about the meme and the concept that is being discussed by the meme. Then after every 5 minutes, the groups rotate, after the 10 minutes, they rotated every 5 minutes to look at the works of their classmates and to see how they process the memes. And then after the rounds, the teacher chose one meme to discuss in the plenary. So this is an example of the meme that was one of the memes that was used. Next slide, please. There. Okay. So I never took chemistry in college. My last chemistry was in high school and I got a C. So I cannot really explain to you what this means. But you can get an idea of how they did it. There's a pasted meme here, and then the students made the marks around the around the meme. How can we do this in distance learning? I would suggest using the next slide, Jamboard. I don't know if you are familiar with this. There, this is a Jamboard. You can just go to jamboard.google.com. It is really an online whiteboard, a collaborative whiteboard at that. You can place a meme here, and then students can put the post-it like that, the yellow one, where they can put the concepts instead of like literally writing on the board. You can actually share this. Next slide, please. Click the share button on the upper right corner, and then you can just share it with a link, share it with your domain, or just type the emails of your students. So in this way, we can actually engage students by their participation with the same activity, but only online. So in that respect, we will now go into a more, because this activity was done in the United States. I think Ma'am Marielle will now contextualize this further into using memes in the Philippines and specifically in the use of peace studies. So thank you very much.
Hello, everyone. I hope everyone can hear me. Ayan. So I am Marielle Zosa of Espiritu, Lopez, and Zosa. And I will be, in a way, synthesizing everything that Sir Alex and Sir Jai have mentioned a while ago about memes. But to contextualize it further, how is it relevant in our context of distance learning? And in particular, in the ethical issues pertaining to peace studies. And we'll be rooting from we'll be grounding upon some examples from popular culture just to further contextualize and make this entire discussion more specific to our local context, right? So I'll ask first the question: why is peace important for us? So this is a webinar particularly about not just using COI, uh, uh, not just using memes for a particular subject area. More specifically in the area of peace studies. So why is peace important for us in the Philippines? There was this study done in 2019 by Huesca, and he had this argument, and for 10-year observation in various regions in Mindanao, he noticed how very important the role of the youth is. Because in Mindanao, he said that you can basically root three of their conflicts into either armed insurgencies, terrorism, more specifically in the religious fundamentalist kind of terrorism, and banditry or land grabbing. While I don't also claim to be an expert in peace studies, because I am not, I will refer to Dr. Esther Plaga for that later in the afternoon session. And the history of conflict in Mindanao is very, very intricate. It's very convoluted. We probably don't have enough time to go through all of that. But the point here is that in this particular study, given these three areas of conflict, Huesca mentioned that the youth are particularly susceptible and vulnerable to both peace and conflict topics and movements. And this is because the youth have so much energy and have so much idealism that can be either easily exploited by whatever groups there are. And he mentioned also that this was done whether to recruit the youth for whatever particular political agenda there is. Social media has proven to be a very powerful tool at the recruitment of both peace and conflict causes. But at the end of the day, I won't go into detail so much into the study, but Huesca encourages to incorporate into the youth, into their mindset, a message of inclusivity, of unity, and not of exclusivity, not of discrimination, not of prejudice, which can be so easily used as means in order to again, recruit the youth for whatever extra political needs there are. And on the upside, he said that there is hope because the youth themselves are actively getting into the causes of non-governmental organizations. In Cotabato, there is what you call a United Youth for Peace and Development. There is this Kapam Mo Gogo towards conflict, not towards issues relating to conflict, but to rechannel their energies for peace endeavors. Okay, so that's the context of peace studies in the Philippines. Why it's very important, especially for those in Mindanao. I know that a lot of us in the metro are, in a way, somewhat not aware or unconscious of whatever is going in Mindanao. So this is also why peace studies is very, very important, even for us in the metro to realize and to comprehend as it affects our brothers and sisters in Mindanao. Okay, and in relation to art therapy, Sir Alex mentioned how art therapy has been used in the education of peace. And they basically conducted art therapy as help with the help of UNICEF in the form of puppetry and photography among adolescents in displaced communities or transitory sites. Basically, these are the youth that have been displaced due to conflict and to civil wars that have been happening around their area. And so they conducted this 5-week program back in 2015, and they tried to use two different kinds of frameworks. One is from UNICEF, the Art for Development and Peace Framework, and another one more common and probably more popular in peace education and peace studies. Divide adolescent participants into those getting into photography. They take pictures with one another and they show emotional expression in their pictures. The other half would perform puppetry and they would puppeteer and basically create narratives for the puppet theater. And in the and based and in both groups, they followed a certain module, and basically the modules would comprise of an understanding of diversity, dismantling biases and discrimination, and this is very important, creating a sense of community across cultures. Again, these are youth that have been traumatized and they have been displaced from their areas. And this is a very interesting study that was conducted by BAO back in 2015. And if you were wondering about the results, these are the results using, again, the two frameworks, Art for Development and Peace Framework, and one Communication for Development Framework. What they found was that after all of the activities based on those three sectional modules, they found that the youth felt safe. So they interviewed adolescents after of a sense of safety and security because one, they were socially connected with one another in the various art therapy. So they felt socially connected with with the other, but they also felt this self-efficacy, just simply that they got back, they had back this sense of control, which was, I would suppose, in some way would have been diminished due to all of the political turmoil that has been happening in the region. And so this was a very, very good study for how art can be used for development and peace. Also, their self-worth was again augmented because they were doing things together and they recognized the outputs of one another. And the sense of support was also very much strengthened and reinforced. In terms of communication for development framework, this is very particular to peace building education. So yes, creativity was showcased. They participated with one another. They cooperated with one another in taking pictures and forming narratives. And they exchanged not just ideas, but also very deep emotions, very profound emotions and thoughts to one another through these various art forms. And so we can say that in this case, art therapy to to further the lessons of peace studies has already been replicated in the Philippines. Now, why are memes and peace building important? And we will go back basically to the community of inquiry, particularly of the distance learning context, because we're all going to be confronted with the reality of distance learning, not just in for the rest of the year, but maybe in the next few years, we will still be, we will basically have this as our new normal. And so I don't want to go into this because Prof. Abby had already brilliantly synthesized all of these, the cognitive presence, the social presence, and the teacher presence, and how these are all very much interrelated and intertwined. And it's really the job of the teacher as a facilitator to sort of keep that even in a peace studies education is very, very critical and crucial. And here is what we can say at the end of the day, just to synthesize what Sir Alex and Sir Jai have already built on previously, is that memes can serve basically as a triggering event to be explored, to be integrated, and for possible resolution by students. So this again reinforces cognitive presence. So memes can serve as that stimulus of inquiry and collaboration among students. Social presence, memes as an art form was already talked about by Sir Alex as an artistic genre. It can serve as an art form for emotional expression, for open communication, and group cohesion. So that is social presence. And again, COI or community of inquiry is not just critical, it's not just creative, but it's also caring thinking towards empathetic understanding. And last but not the least, there is this teacher presence where memes should serve as can serve as a very good tool for instruction and building understanding. So this is in a way trying to encourage educators, especially in the distance learning to use memes, particularly for these, the keeping intact, for the unification of all of these presences. And I'm just going to briefly, because there have been so many memes that were already presented to you, but I guess something that would more reflect how we can build on, particularly Sir Alex mentioned film as a genre, that you can take film along with their quotations, even from popular culture, as stimulus for inquiry. So, for example, if you've watched Raya and the Last Dragon, this I would say is also a very, very good movie or film about peace and about conflict resolution. So Raya, the heroine, one of the heroines of the film, said that the world's broken, you can't trust anyone. To which Sisa, her companion, says, or maybe the world's broken because you don't trust anyone. So this is a film also partly inspired by Southeast Asian cultures, no, that talks about how a land was once very unified, but then were fragmented, and now they have to struggle with perpetual conflict with one another, and really no one trusts one another. And this is a good, this scene pretty much encapsulates why we have to work together and build upon peace instead of always resulting into conflict. Another one, I guess, if you don't want to take the international, some international popular examples of peace in films, maybe in a more local context, I'm sure a lot of us have watched Four Sisters and the Wedding, and I don't want to spoil surrounded by her siblings. And the family had so many conflicts in this movie. They don't like the fiance that the sisters don't like the fiance their little brother was married. The two female siblings were fighting over the guy. One was very, in a way, sort of heralding all of her achievements over everyone else. One was just a basic school teacher. And here in this scene, you can see that it's the mother that ties. Despite the conflict, she is like the peacemaker of this family. I'm not perfect, but I'm your mother, and I will always love you the best way I know how. And that's sort of for them, despite all of their differences, they can gather together. Again, the message always in peace study is to spread one of inclusivity, one of unity, not of divisiveness, not of exclusivity. This is before we go on to the summary. I would like to thank Sir Alex here for this is actually one way in which you can also use memes for evaluation. He used this in one of his ethics classes. So he showed, if not a meme, then a caption with a film quote, and he basically asked, given this meme, this statement reflects to what A or B. So again, this can also be a very good tool for instruction and evaluation by the teacher to get what the students have understood from their lessons. And if you want to personalize or customize memes, as Sir Jai mentioned a while ago, Jamboard. But if you want to know where, how you can get memes, and if there are any templates, then you can go to imgflip.com/meme generator. It is very, very, especially if you want it to be more personal for your students, a lot more customized, then you can go to this link. And so as a basic summary, and then we're going to end our discussion here. And then in the first part, Sir Alex talked about memes basically as an argument that says a lot, that is asserting something. But at the end of the day, it is towards a certain empathetic understanding about one another and what these memes talk about. Sir Jai talked about the concept, the theoretical, more into the theoretical concept and some practical applications of those theoretical concepts of memes, particularly in distance education. And what I did was to basically try to relate that into a more contextual, a more locally specific case in our country, particularly in peace studies in Mindanao. And to use memes basically as one effective tool for instruction in a community of inquiry in distance learning. And so I hope you all enjoyed our discussion, and then we sent something very informative to you. But before I end, I guess before I bring this back to Prof. Aleli Karaan, our very, very wonderful moderator, I would just like to alert everyone that, so given everything that has been talked about this morning, we're going to be doing some breakout groups. And I'll just leave you with this question before we break out into groups. How can memes become effective for COI teaching after everything that has been discussed this morning? And I hope that you bear this question in mind. And again, we hope very sincerely that you enjoyed our very brief presentation. Thank you very much.